Welcome, everyone, to our latest edition of Games People Play. I remain Bernie Corbett, but we do have a very special guest with us here today. He is an NBA champion. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He is truly a survivor, and I would qualify him as a reluctant revolutionary. Our guest today is HOF 2015, Mr. Spencer Haywood. Spencer, welcome.
Really a pleasure to be here with you, Bernie.
Well, recently we had Tommy John on, and of course we had Tommy John, the man, not the surgery. Today we have Spencer Haywood, the man, not the rule. So,
not the rule.
Although we will be talking about that, among other things, here today.
Yes.
Indeed. Spencer is our format here on the Games People Play. All stories, as I say, have a beginning, and your beginning, born in 1949. In, I guess, a corporate township of about 300 in the Delta country of Mississippi, Silver City, Mississippi. Your roots and your beginnings were rather challenging, to say the least.
Yes, it was. And let me remind you and the audience, there was no silver, and it ain't no city.
Wrong and wrong.
Wrong and wrong, okay. But no, I was born in the Delta of Mississippi. The Delta is where most of the cotton was grown and the farming took place for cotton. You chop cotton from sun up to sundown, which is first you plant it and then you watch it pop out of the ground, and then you have to chop it because you know it's a row of cotton and it's all thick, so you have to chop it with a hoe. You let it grow, and then you have to pick it. And a picket is a thorn. Cotton is a thorn. You reach down into the thorn, you pull it out, put it into your sack, and then you drag that sack to the next point, and then you pick it and pull it up again. You drag it to the next sack, and by the time you get to a certain area, your sack is full. It weighs about 100 pounds, and you have to put the sack on your back. And you got to walk back to the trailer. You got to climb up on the trailer and dump that cotton out, and you got to weigh it and dump it out, and then you go back into the field. And I started off in the field as a kid because when my mother had me, you don't get a chance to, when you sharecropping and just indenture slavery, you don't get a chance to go and say, well, I take a month off. I need to nurse
maternity leave.
Yeah, no, no place. Anyway, she swaddled me on her back and went back out into the field and went back to work. And so my earliest recollection was being in the cotton field, picking cotton as a child, or the little baby. You know, you're pulling, because my mother would say, you know, you can't just ride on my sack, boy, for nothing. You gotta like pick that low level of cotton. And so you pick it as a little kid and you pick it. And so I grew up picking cotton, and I thought it was the worst job, the worst thing that I could ever do, and it turned out to be the best. By that I mean, by picking cotton with both hands as a kid, with left and right, and dragging a sack, I built up, my hand and eye coordination was good. My dragging a sack, my legs were much more powerful at a 10-year-old level, and I was carrying 100 pounds on my shoulder, bringing it back. So I developed into this monster of a player, but I didn't know I was going to be a player at the time. I was trying to be the best cotton picker that our county had ever had. You know, that was my goal. And lo and behold, I get to Detroit, and I first practiced when everything settled in. I got adopted by a family in Detroit, and Will Robinson, the first black coach to coach in the NCAA history, was my guardian. So we started practicing, and everybody was like, man, this guy don't ever get tired, because I had been working from sun up to sundown. You know, working, I mean, real work.
Real work.
And so when he said, well, look, you guess what, guys, we're gonna practice real hard today, and it's gonna be 2.5 hours. I was sitting back like, man, this sounds like old Brer Rabbit. You're throwing me into the brow patch, buddy. And so so we would practice, and then I would like finish my practice, and then I would say to the coach, I need another 2 hours to work. And he was like fascinated by that. And so I kept doing that and doing that. And lo and behold, by the end of the season, when the season came about, and no one had won the Class A state championship from the city of Detroit in 35 years. And we got a chance to play in that championship, and we won it and brought it back to Detroit, because Detroit Public School had been written out of it for 35 years. So that was just too awesome. And then my next stop was to the University of Tennessee, because I wanted to be close to my parents. My mother, she had never seen me play. And I went down there, and a little bit of trouble came up because of the fact that, you know, Adolph Rupp, who was at Kentucky, he thought he should have the first Black player because he had lost to Texas Western. And for the young people who are watching, Glory Road kind of explains that story.
Movie, yep.
Yeah. And so I just said, no, I kind of wanted to play for Tennessee, and I didn't want to go to Kentucky. So I then said, well, look, why don't we just go to a junior college? And I ended up at a junior college in Colorado, close to Denver, close to Albuquerque, according to Robinson, according to Will. And it was 360 miles from Denver, 420 from Albuquerque. So I was out in no man's land and just playing basketball and studying, because I wanted to get out in a year. You have to maintain to be average. And lo and behold, there was this rumbling about the '68 Olympics, and certain guys wasn't going to come. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar boycotted the '68 Olympics. The same thing happened with Elvin Hayes and Wesley Unseld. If they hadn't signed their professional contract, because back then you couldn't play in the Olympics unless you were strictly an amateur. So they signed their contract to get out of the deal. And then they start allowing players, the first time and the last time, they allowed freshmen to try out. And I went down to try out, and there we were playing against Pete Maravich, Calvin Murphy, Rick Mount. And these guys, Pistol Pete was averaging 44, I think, a game. Rick Mount was averaging 39. Calvin Murphy was averaging 33.
Niagara.
They got cut.
All those guys, yep.
They got cut.
All three of them.
Whoa, what are we doing? And then we had Dan Issel, who, you know, I guess and this is some news here, because Hank Ivor and Adolph Rupp had a little ruckus going on, you know, between coaches that happened. So he didn't take Dan Issel, he took him as an alternate, and he took Ken Spain from the University of Houston as our center. And that was always a kind of a sad sore spot for all of us, but you know, we didn't have nothing to do with that. And so we played hard, but yet it was the 1968 where all of this turmoil was going, whether this should be, blacks should boycott it completely. And we were like, what are we going to do? We got to make a statement back home. So Tommy Smith and John Carlos decided we will put on the black glove if we win our race. And George Foreman said, you know, I'm in Houston at the Boys Hope. I need life. So I'm going to wave a little American flag.
Right.
You know, yeah. And so we were all sitting around doing our talking, because, you know, at that time, all of the male athletes stayed in the same dorm, in the same compound. So it was like you just sit around the lobby talking yak all day and eating, because that was our thing. George Foreman and I,
training table. Yep.
Yeah. Tried to kill him. And so
he got the grill, but not you.
I didn't get the grill. He's still eating. He's got the grill. Yeah. And so we ended up, you know, just going back to play. And before we played, there was something that happened kind of shook us up a little bit, because we had Jesse Owens, Wilma Rudolph, and these are the former Olympians.
Right.
And
they spoke to you guys, yeah.
They spoke to us, and we were like, you know, these old people, man, they don't know what the revolution is all about, and you don't know what's going on. Jesse said, hold it, you sons of SOBs. I tell you something. How would you feel if you had to run before Hitler? We were like, he threw the H-man on us. Oh man, so we start twiddling with our socks and stuff and twiddling with our thumbs, you know, like, man, he put the Hitler on us. So right away we were like, yeah, no problem. The game is on, no big deal. And that's when we started to really practice our craft and do what we're doing. And so when Tommy Smith and John Carlos got up on the stand after their race, they put on the glove. And this was like a solidarity back home with Black folks and other folks, you know. But Avery Brundage just escorted them out. They didn't even get a chance to pick up their clothes good, you know, and stuff, and pushed them through the line. There was a line of reporters and people throwing things and acting really, it was just so un-American to get them out of there and put them on a plane and ship them back to San Jose. And when they got there was a whole line of people out there. You traitors, you this. They won the gold medal. They didn't boycott.
Yeah.
So that was like, that was the drama, because we had that on the big screen, you know, back then it wasn't a big screen, but it was a screen. And so we saw all of that happening. And then we got back to, and played our game. And in the final game, Howard Cosell crawled up on me because I was 19 years old. And I'm like, you know, I'm just playing, man. I'm enjoying my life. And I'm going to win. We're going to win this gold medal. And he's, you know, I tell you something, son. If you do lose this, you'll be like Ali somewhat. You'll never be happy in America. And Ali hadn't shown his way at that time because he had been boxing for 60, but that was his boy. So that was his guy, Ali. So he was always bringing Ali as an example. Sure. And so I got my nerves got all shot, and Hank Ivor and the coaching staff got all mad at Howard. Why would you do that? You know, he was a kid. Howard, well, he was 19. We didn't know. And so you could see me in the final game. I make a layup and I run straight into the locker room, threw up, came back, ran right back on the floor, and we won the gold medal. And I was like just crying on stage because 3 years before, I was picking cotton in Mississippi for 4 years. I was picking cotton in Mississippi for $2 a day. Could not leave the farm. If I left the farm, you know, my family members would be hurt. So it was just chaotic to say, man, how could you come so fast and so far, but you can in America? And that's the beauty of our country, that you can come from never to this top of the heap. And then the problem came about, well, what are you going to do when you get to Detroit? Detroit don't like you because you didn't make a protest. So we arrived in Detroit Metropolitan Airport, and there was thousands of people out there waiting for us and cheering for me and Will. And I was like just boiling over with tears. And I said, wow, this is so beautiful. The Olympics, 68. We got the 50th anniversary coming up this year in Tokyo. It's just so awesome. So that's the American story. And I'll go into the wars of the hardship case.
Well, I just gotta go back to Mississippi here for a moment, just to put it in context. You never knew your dad. You were actually born 3 months premature,
right?
And your dad passed away very suddenly of a heart attack. Just 3 weeks before you were born. Thank God you had older siblings to mentor you, because what a terrible thing for you, Spencer, right from the beginning, that you never knew your father.
Never knew, never had to love. But you know, my mom was like just overwhelmed with love, even though it was
9 siblings.
The 8th child, you know, so she spent a lot of time with me, a lot of love with me, and it was always told by the soothsayers of Silver City, that boy is a special boy, he's something special. And so my mother kind of like bought into the idea, yeah, he is, yeah, sure.
I'll buy that, yeah.
So she bought into it, and it was pretty cool because I got extra cookies. I got little things that my other brothers and stuff. And if you look at a picture of me when I was 12 years old, I was taking a photo for the school, and my brother Andrew missed out on his photo shoot. So he decided, well, I'll just blacken your eye. So he punched me in the eye. I got a big black eye on my photo, on my photo shoot. I said, classic civil rivalry here.
Geez, he could have just gone like this, and that would have got the point across. He could have given you the bunny ears. Instead, he punched you in the eye.
I'll get you good. I'll get you good. I mess up your photo. Wow. Whoa.
That definitely will mess it up.
Yeah.
And just amazing when you talk about the Olympics, and 3 years removed from picking cotton, you're an Olympic champion, and the Jim Crow South post-World War II that you experienced, to go from unaccepted as an American in the South in terms of segregation to now being an American hero. I mean, the stories about you being shot at on the walking around in Mississippi at night, how you were treated working at the country club that you worked at the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's an amazing phenomenon in itself, that now all of a sudden here you are representing America as an Olympic hero and receiving a gold medal. Incredible.
And it's at its highest form, you know.
Right at the top.
So, you know, so I know with all of the politics and all of the stuff that's going on nowadays, and we see all of the separations between us and them, or them and us, or however it is, I still say that this country is going to come together as I saw it in the '68 Olympics, and I saw it after the riots in Detroit. I saw it after the riots in California, Newark, so on. I saw this. We hit rock bottom now, and so we're gonna like rise up like this phoenix. We're going to be something so special as a country, and I'm just happy to be a part of the growth that's going to take place, because it's going to be so special.
Talking about the early time of your basketball career, truth be told, not only did you not play on a court, I believe, until junior high school, but you didn't have a basketball. Your mother made a basketball for you and your brothers.
Yeah, well, we had no basketball, and we had no court, and we had no rim.
Right.
So,
other than that, you had everything.
You had everything. And so she says, well, we don't have no money, baby, to buy no basketball now. That's $5 that we can't afford at all. And so no one was throwing out basketball in the garbage dump, which we would always play in that dump, trying to find things, bicycles, basketball, or whatever. But nobody was throwing them out. So she said, I'll make you a basketball. How are you gonna make a basketball that bounce? No, it won't be bouncy, but we're gonna put cotton in this ball and put it in a croquet sack, or you would call a potato sack, and stitch it up, and it's a round ball, and you say to each other, 1, 2, and you make the pass or you make the shot. And so we were just, oh, this is great. And then we put a barrel rim on a backboard. We made a backboard, and we put this big barrel rim on it. And this thing was like, you couldn't miss. You could not miss, because the ball would hit up there and just stuck. And, boop. And so unless you were my brother Andrew, and then you got 3 bounces.
You got an extra one.
You got an extra one because he was cheating. And so we played basketball, and lo and behold, one day somebody threw one in the garbage, and we watched that ball for days. We watched that baby off, put a little patch on it, blew that baby up gently. We don't want to blow the patch off. And boy, and it started bouncing. We was like, oh, heaven, we got a real ball. And then the next thing we were scouring for was a basketball hoop. And then my mother broke down and like, all right, I'm gonna buy you a hoop. You know, it's like $6. So we got that hoop up, and man, we had our traveling show. We would travel from county to county, walking all day long to play basketball, carrying our backboard and our patched up basketball to play different kids in different communities. And that's how we started playing. That's my love for the game. My first love was not basketball, it was golf. Can you believe it?
Working at the country club.
Working at the country club,
developed a love for golf, really. Yeah. Yeah. Your first, once again, as the people that came into your life, the first one that noticed you, of course, you were, what, 6'6" at age 13.
Yeah.
A fellow by the name of Charles Wilson, who happened to be
Charlie Wilson, yeah.
11-time Mississippi Coach of the Year, and he first noticed you before you did come north, and that was the first time you got to play on I think junior high was the first time you actually played on a court.
In a gym, yeah. In a gym.
Yeah.
A real court.
You
know,
court.
what happened was I grew so fast that I grew out of my body. And so he says, well, I'm not going to cut you from the team. I'm going to put you on the team, but we only have 13 uniforms, and you have to wear the away uniform when we play away. I mean, a home uniform when we play home. Away, and your home uniform, it's like right vice versa. So I had on a yellow uniform or a white uniform, and everyone else had on a gold uniform, and I had on a white one, or they had on a white one, and I had on a gold one. And that lasted maybe a half a year. And then, you know, one guy got in trouble, and then I ended up just playing on the team, enjoying. And he was just engrossed in the idea that I just love to play. I don't know where I got it from. It was just like, it was just a love thing, you know. I love to play. And I would stay after school. He would drive me back home, back 7 miles back down to Silver City, where there's no silver and it ain't no city.
It ain't no city. That's right.
So he would drive me back and forth, and I developed so fast, and everything happened. My first basket was in the wrong basket, of course. I was so excited.
Really?
I was so excited that he started me because one of our center got put in jail. So he started me, and I was like, oh, I'm started. And I was like, all the people in the stands and everybody, you know, like the people from the cotton fields was there. And I was like, oh man, my nerves are bad. So I got the tip, and the guy passed me the ball. I'm like, why would you pass me the ball? And I was like, oh, I took off, and I was dribbling. And I went down, made a perfect layup, perfect form, boom, into the wrong basket. My sister was sitting in the stand. Oh, he's such an idiot. But I was so happy to get on the floor. I shook that off right away and ended up with 15 points and 10 rebounds. So, and everybody in school the next day was like, yeah, tall man can play with the little head, you know.
Tall man. They knew he got game very early. And, and you took that game. You did have relatives that had migrated north, saved up $17 bus fare first to Chicago. But when you get to Chicago, you realize this isn't much better than Mississippi. So
it was the same as Mississippi.
About the same. It's like, this isn't much of an improvement. So thankfully, you had another opportunity knocking in Detroit with your brother Leroy.
Yeah, my brother Leroy. He was a student at Bowling Green. Let me give you the parallel between my brothers in Chicago. My brothers in Chicago, they were like, had on these jelly-looking suits and stuff, and these shiny-looking shoes, and they drink heavily. And they partied, they worked hard, but on the weekend, they was like into it. And my brother came over from the university, Bowling Green State University, to see us and visit with his family. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at them. Whoa, what a difference. And he is playing at a major university, Division I. So I'm like, this guy I want to follow. So he saw me. We went out and played together, just pick up one-on-one and stuff. And he came back and he said, hey, he's got to pack up his stuff. And I was like, I'm going with you? He said, yeah, you're going with me. So I put all my stuff in a 10-pound bag, you know, a paper bag, because I only had one pair of pants, 2 shirts, and some underwear, and I was on my way. And we got to get down to Bowling Green State University, and from there, he brought me into Detroit to play at the famed Crunk outdoor courts. You know, the boxing,
yes,
but that's the inside. The
outside
outside was basketball and tennis and baseball, et cetera. And so I got a chance to play against all of the high school players on a high school tournament. And I just ran all day long and killed them guys. And I had a hole in my gym shoe. And I was like, maybe they're going to give me a pair of those brand new Converse. Because mine had cardboard in the bottom. And lo and behold, the next game they came in and we were getting ready to play against Cassie Russell, Bill Buntington, and all of those college players.
Yeah.
So
Played at Michigan.
said,
Yeah.
young boy, you got some new shoes here. So I was like, woo, I got some new shoes that fit. Because down south, your shoes
They're
always
mine?
smaller because they didn't have big sizes.
Sure.
So I got those shoes and put those shoes on. I felt like, oh, I died and went to heaven. And then I was asking in the locker room, because the other players were like, I don't want to play in those shoes. I don't want to play in no Converse. I want to play in Adidas. I want to play in, Pro Kids. I don't want to play in that mess. So I was like, oh, can you put them all over in the corner there? Because I know a lot of my friends in Silver City, Mississippi that don't have shoes, my brothers.
Sure. Thinking
And
of
my
your family.
sisters, they don't have shoes. They play.
Yeah.
So I gathered up the shoes and had my stuff all tucked in and had a great game. And then they ended up letting me play against the pros, Dave Bing and all of those guys. And I did real well there and had fun. And that's when the family decided to adopt me and raise me. And lo and behold, when I get to over to Persian High School, I was lacking in education because they shut down the schools in Mississippi to do harvest and do planting and so on. So you're far behind. And I met this great genius, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And Dr. Wayne Dyer,
really?
Yeah, he took over my life and walked me through study programs, everything, and self-esteem, because everything I did at that point, I was always, my head was down, because you eyeball a person in Mississippi, they punch you in the face. A white person, so you like walk around like that. So he taught me how to, everything is chin up, chin out. And then he would drop me off in Birmingham, Michigan, and I would have to stay up there. And I would sit at this bus stop, and these old white lady and Jewish lady would always come every day, and I'm sitting there, we just talking all the time. And then we walk down the street, down Woodward, and they would talk, we're gonna help teach you, boy. We're gonna make you a genteel, a genteel gentleman. So we were walking, we were talking, they would be correcting me. You said it wrong. You can't say words like that. You gotta say it like this. And
Proper
but
diction.
I fell in love with them, and I would look forward to that every other day. Whenever we got up there, I just looked so forward to that. And then sometime they were like, let me go in the restaurant. I'm like, ooh. And my Mrs. Bell would say, don't you go in there order no steak now. You get yourself a sandwich, be happy. And I solely wanted to have like, man, give me this ribeye.
That's right. Make the most of the opportunity.
So many people, white and black, was just a part of my life that made me who I am.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned the family that you live with, James and Ida Bell, and Will Robinson, the coach. And I was just fascinated by doing some research on Will Robinson, member of 7 Hall of Fames, first black, we'll get to that in a moment he was the first black Division I head coach. He should have been about a year or two sooner. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Hello.
It was on hold. That's right. We'll talk about that in a minute. But was a scout for the Detroit Pistons for 28 years. He found Joe Dumars and Dennis Rodman. He was a scout for the Detroit Lions for 22 years. He found 2 Hall of Famers, Charlie Sanders and Lem Barney. And he was the first black high school coach in Michigan. And I'm going to make the understatement that I've made on this program. I don't think I've ever made a bigger understatement than this. You had some pretty good athletes on that high school basketball team, Spencer. 5 guys that played in 3 professional sports. Are you kidding me? Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Oh, my goodness. What was that experience? You had Glenn Doughty and Paul Seal, played for Bo Schembechler, played in the NFL.
Yeah.
You had Ralph Simpson, who played 10 years, kind of followed you to the Denver Nuggets a year later, but played in the NBA. And then Marvin Lane, who Bill LaJoie of was the Detroit Tigers scout and later their GM. He said he was the best athlete of the bunch. He was the quarterback on the football team, and he was your point guard. And he played Major League Baseball. Unbelievable. All in one high school and one team. It should be an ESPN 30 for 30, man.
30 for 30 right there. One team. Like, how do you do this? But Will was such a, you had to play 2 sports back then. And I was a track man. I still love, because I used to run in Mississippi trying to get to school on time and stuff. So I ran cross country, just running. And so when I got to Detroit, right away he said, well, you got to have another sport. And I really wanted to play tight end in football. So I did go out to get a few catches in. And during that period, we was doing a little scrimmage. So I went across the middle. A linebacker came and met me at a point and said, hello. And I said, yeah, I don't think I want to play this. I coughed up the ball. Will Robinson went nuts, and he's telling you, I told you you're going to mess up the state championship messing around with this stuff. Get on the track and field. And so I ran track and threw the shot put and high jump.
Yeah. Good career decision.
Good career decision.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, the first team Class A champions, 37 years, Michigan State champions out of the city of Detroit. For the Pershing, naturally, the Doughboys, the nickname. Of course, they were the Doughboys, General Pershing.
Pershing.
With General Pershing, 1967. You mentioned Dave Bing, and I know when you went in the Hall of Fame, you thanked Dave Bing. You singled him out. But the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons, the NBA team, they used to come and scrimmage and practice with your high school basketball team. That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable, isn't it? And Dave would bring them over, and we would scrimmage against the Pistons, and we would always say, Franklin Muley, why would he drink so much before practice? Because he had a few beers, and you could smell it on him. And we were like, I guess when we get to the pros or be like these guys, we're going to have a brew, a Schaefer.
A Schaefer.
A Detroit own, And it was just so wonderful playing against Eddie Miles, John Tresvant, all those guys during high school. And we just playing, man, enjoying ourselves. And Dave is pointing out every little thing I was doing wrong and how you got to carry yourself. And, don't be with this person. Don't be over here, because you got a good opportunity to make it to the pros. You got to go through all of your college and everything. You got to keep your grades up. You got to do. He was such a mentor for me.
And Coach Robinson, once again, as your mentor, he directed you to Trinidad State when it didn't work out with Tennessee. I believe you did commit at one point, as you mentioned, to go to Tennessee. Ray Mears was the coach there. He was another legendary coach. He must have been the guy that recruited you.
He and Stu Aberdeen.
Yep.
Yeah, the assistant coach. But Ray was just such an awesome person. And I was like, oh my God, I wanted to play so bad. The campus was perfect. I went down and stayed all summer and was, enrolled and getting ready for school and everything. But, the politics of basketball took place again in my life. So.
And Rupp was so powerful at the time.
Yeah, he was powerful, very powerful. So.
What a shame. You could have been involved.
But if I had stayed at Tennessee, I wouldn't have been able to play in the Olympics. Because you had to be a sophomore. You had to be on a varsity team before you could play in the Olympics. Whereas if you were junior college, they just let everybody roll out everybody. And they didn't think an 18, I was the only 18-year-old, 19-year-old guy that was on the junior college team. So then they're like, we got to take this young guy?
What? Yeah, absolutely. And you were the JUCO Player of the Year, at Trinidad State, as you mentioned, and that gave you that Olympic opportunity with Hank Iba. And
well, before we got to Hank Iba, we had a junior college team that was coached by Jerry Tarkanian.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
That's who brought me to Albuquerque. And he was just selling everybody. And they were like, Jerry, please, you're going to get a head coaching job. Come on. So Jerry was like, no, I got this kid. This kid is phenomenal. He's going to make the team, and he's going to be the best thing you've seen. And everybody kept, Jerry, please go away with this talk. This kid can't be this good.
Shame on me. I didn't look up the Trinidad State coach, but it was Jerry Tarkanian.
Vern Mosier was the coach.
Okay.
But what they did was they put together a junior college all-star team.
Oh, an all-star was
go
met Jerry.
To Albuquerque, because you had the NC2A, you had the NIA, you had the armed military, the military, the AAU.
Yes.
AAU.
Yeah.
Back then, AAU was semi-professional.
Right. That's right.
And we got 2 guys from AAU on that Olympic team, and we got one from the Armed Forces. Mike Silliman was from the Armed Forces. He was the captain. And we had Calvin Fowler and Jim King played on that team as well from AAU. So for young people, AAU, it's for young people. No, it used to be semi-professional. And they played at what team? Akron Goodyear.
Akron Goodyear. There you go.
The Goodyear Tire.
The Goodyear Tire Company. There you go. And you another big influence from your Olympic experience was the assistant coach to Hank Iber. John McClendon was a guy that was another man that came into your basketball life that had a profound effect down the road.
Of course.
Yep.
Yeah. And John McClendon came from the lineage of Kansas, where Dr. Naismith,
all
James
the way to the
Naismith,
very
was
beginning.
his mentor. Yeah. And so he mentored him all the way up through. And so then we play in the Olympics. He was that this big influence. And then when they was saying, well, you know, if you're going to leave college, we're going to need to get a good coach that you can relate to and somebody that can be firm with you. They reached out to Denver, and the ABA said John McClendon would be the perfect guy. Here I am again with John McClendon.
John McClendon would crop up again.
But I did get some payola for wearing those Converse in the Olympics. So I got $1,500. I was like, ooh-wee. You know, Olympic athletes, you find, you know, like a little change in your socks and in your shoes. Oh, try out these new Converse.
Oh, yeah.
Like put them on. Oh, I can't get my foot in. Yeah. Wait a minute. Oh, this is why. Oh, let me.
Right, that's right. Feel a couple.
Because they couldn't hand it to you.
That's right. No.
So it was always like some kind of like you found something.
Yeah, subtle. Yeah, go take a walk in the park, go 5 paces, and there'll be a paper bag there waiting for you.
There you go.
Exactly. You know, it's amazing to note that, and once again, you talked about Harry Edwards was the driving force with the boycott, and there was no Lou Alcindor, Kareem, no Unseld, and Elvin, the Big E, Elvin Hayes. But because of that, your Olympic team came in as an underdog. Russia was a favorite for the Olympic gold that year, which would have been unprecedented. The U.S. had never lost before.
Yeah.
And also the Yugoslavia team.
Yugoslavia was picked to finish second.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, you know, as far as that experience, you talked about throwing up. There's a lot of pressure on you guys as undermanned as you were perceived to be able to uphold for the United States. I mean, that's something that I don't think people can understand, the context of that year.
That context was like, I mean, if you don't win this one, you would be the first team to lose in the Olympics. And that was a driving force that was just so embedded in every day. Hank Iber and John McClendon drilled it in our head, you know, like, you don't want to be the first. You don't want to be the first. So we worked out extra hard. We had some pretty good players on it. We had Charlie Scott from University of North Carolina. JoJo White from Kansas, who had lost to Texas Western in the quarterfinals or finals or something like that. And before they got to Kentucky, we had guys from the University of Michigan. We had Bill Hoskett was, you know, like my roommate, and that's another whole story. I never lived with a white person. Never. I never had an idea that I would be living in a room with a white person. So Bill Hoskett walked me through the whole process really strong, because I was at the Olympics. You got to have a roommate. Right. And so my roommate was Bill Hoskett, and he just made me so comfortable. And he was an older gentleman up for the basketball team, because he was like, I think, a junior, and I was a freshman. So he just took his freshman on his arm. You know, teach you the rules, you teach this. And also, it was not black and white, but it was like brotherhood. And he taught me a lot there, because I had been beat down in Mississippi, so I didn't know how to behave. Yeah. But Bill Hoskett was my guy. Other than the women on Woodward Avenue that helped you out, then Bill was the next guy. Well, you know, to help you out as far as the decorum around the white people, anyway, to help you out. Yeah, exactly. But explain it to the audience, Woodward Avenue, 12th Avenue, a little bit, so they'll know. That's right. Your Woodward Avenue, right in the heart of Detroit.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 12th Avenue is where
Cross the
the
line.
ladies of the night would stroll. So, so we would get down there, and because we was all virgins, so you go and look at the girls and walk out, and they like, come here, baby, come here, I got something for you. And you were like, oh Lord, no! If I do that, my whole career is over. My life is ruined.
You have to go to church twice on Sunday. You know
what I mean? Okay.
Got to sit through 2 sermons. That's right. As far as the Olympic run, it turned out to be a brilliant run, and not bad for the youngest player ever, as you mentioned in the Olympics. You set a record that stood for over 40 years with 145 points. You shot 72%, and in that gold medal game, which turned out to be Yugoslavia upsetting Russia, you dropped 24 in that gold medal game against Yugoslavia. So that Olympic experience, suddenly the name Spencer Haywood now was known because of, out of nowhere, literally, everybody in the nation knew the name Spencer Haywood. Who was this kid? Spencer Haywood. He just led them to the gold medal.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And colleges was clamoring, come on, we need you to come here. And I thought for a second, maybe I'll go out to UCLA because I always loved John Wooten. But Will was like, you're going to go play with Kareem? What kind of fairness is that? You gotta, you gotta have to create your own. And I got a pretty good place in mind. That University of Detroit is going to be a place to happen, to make it happen. And so we got together with Governor Romney, not Mitt's father,
George Romney,
and Mayor Kavanaugh. And they were like, we need you to come home, son. We need you to uplift this city. We have had a riot here. The whole city basically burned down. And we are looking at great things with the Tigers this year. We got like Denny McClain.
Was on our show a couple weeks ago.
We got all these guys. They are ready. You're going to be part of a movement.
Yeah.
And the last caveat, we're going to hire Will Robinson as your coach in your year. I was like, hey, I'm your guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that would have made him at that time the first African-American Division I head basketball coach. And they did commit to that deal, Spencer, at the time.
Right, they did. But they reneged later once they got me. But the incredible thing that was going on under the belly of it, Ralph Simpson was going to leave Michigan State, come back with us over at the University of Detroit. George Gervin was going to play with us coming up. We had been talking to him because I coached him when he was 15. We had Bubba Hawkins. We had a lineup of players that were just floating around Detroit looking for a place to play. I mean, these are pros.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were going to build this big powerhouse franchise there known as the University of Detroit, but they just blew it all because of race. And it just scares me again, that race thing. It just
terrible.
It's always get crazy. I'm like, wow.
And because of that, it put you in a position where obviously disillusioned. You really saw the hypocrisy of college athletics, if you will. The reality as opposed to what is the public presentation of college athletics. And because of your family situation and the fact that, your mom was still back in Mississippi picking cotton and
$2 a day.
$2 a day.
Sun up to sundown.
Sun up to sundown, 12 hours, not getting any younger. And once again, with 9 siblings, this prompted you to think the unthinkable, and that was about playing professionally. And once again, the good karma of the time was there was a rival basketball league called the ABA that might present an alternative for you to the NBA and their rule. Yeah,
and the salesperson or the person who was acting like commissioner, I don't know what he was, Mike Hannah Storm's father from ESPN, he was like, you need to be here. We're going to undercut the NBA in their draft. We're going to have a rule called the hardship. And any player that's having a hardship, who's having problems at a university, we're going to take them over here, and you could be the first one to do it. And if you get out there and you get us 7 points maybe and 5 rebounds a game, this gamut would work. So I got out there and got 30 points a game and 20 rebounds a game. Was the MVP, Rookie of the Year, leading scorer, leading rebounder, MVP of the All-Star game. And it's like, wait a minute. So here comes Julius Erving, everybody else like, hey, I want to go play. And so a whole line of people followed me there. But then the Denver, they did something really stupid. They gave me a contract for $1.9 million, making me the highest paid player in professional basketball, so they said. And the contract was so fraudulent that what happened was they said, this contract is going to read, after we had a lawyer, Al Ross, we came in and read the contract, because I didn't read it. I was just playing basketball. I was
a kid at the time, yeah.
I was 19 years old, man, and I just wanted the ball. I didn't know they would do something so cruel. But what they did is they gave me a contract for that 1.9, that 1.5 of that 1.9 would be derived from this $10,000 into a dog-off plan on Wall Street.
Oh.
And this Wall Street money would generate 1.5, which you could only touch when you were age 50 to age 70.
Oh, man.
And
wow.
You would have to, and into the fine print on the contract, you would have to be employed by Ringsby Truck Line to receive that money.
Wow.
So Al Ross looked at the contract, and then we passed it on to Sam Schumann. He said, a bunch of crap. And he's a Brooklyn guy. A bunch of crap. What kind of crap is this? And Al Ross, you know, he's from New York, so he's like, oh, this is crazy. So I got these Jewish guys, they like pounding the table and doing things. Let's go back in here and get this contract straightened out. So we run back in there to the owners. Hey, Don, JW, we want to get this straight. I want to introduce you to my lawyer. You got a lawyer? What is wrong with you?
How could you do such a thing?
How could you do such a horrible thing? You know? And so Al Ross started talking about, well, you know, I tell you what, we're going to want you to honor the contract. And they looked at Al and I and said, listen, you get your nigger ass out of here and take that damn Jew lawyer with you.
Oh, boy.
I ain't doing nothing. I'm not changing nothing.
Oh, boy.
And then we said, yeah, it's going to be a fight, because at the same time we had talked to Sam Schumann. He said, well, look, you're only going to have to set out 1 year, and then I'm going to fight to have you as a draft. But if push comes to shove, I'm going to play you this year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pay you. So that's when the drama began. And once I signed with Seattle, they honored the contract that was given to me in Denver in straight out cash, you know. And I got out on the floor, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be playing tonight, baby. And lo and behold, the announcer come on like, ladies and gentlemen, we have an illegal player on the floor, number 24. Oh yeah, that's me.
That's right. Let me check my number.
Yeah, check my number here. Could be down on the other end. I don't know who this illegal player is. And we have an injunction from the next 10 days and 10 games here.
Oh,
and
gosh.
They escorted me off the floor into the locker room. I changed clothes, sit on the bus, and just cried like a baby, like, they ain't gonna let me play. And then 10 games later, we get an injunction to play. And when we get an injunction to play, they were like, ladies and gentlemen, this game is played under protest because of that illegal player, number 24. And then the other team would walk down into their locker room and leave me up there with our team, with the Sonics. And Lenny was like, they're going to come back up. Just wait it out. In the meantime, they're throwing things. Hey, go back to college. You tearing up the university system. You bum. And the names that they were calling me in Mississippi. You know?
Oh, having flashbacks now. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so eventually they would come up and we would play the game, but it was all under protest. And I played the next 10 games under protest. Then they would get an injunction again and set me down again for another 10 games. And then lo and behold, that had went through the districts and through the courts and we were like at federal court. And then the next step was, we're going to move on to the Supreme Court. And I'm looking at, man, all these lawyers. We got Pat Brown from Jerry Brown's father, from the former governor of California.
California, yeah, that's right.
Frank Rothman, who did free agency for baseball. And we had Jack Quinn. All of this legal team was just incredible. And of course, we had Al Ross, my attorney. And we were battling, man. It was like awesome, battling and battling. So we got to the Supreme Court. I didn't appear because I was playing. And so the case went before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, yeah, we're gonna grant him the rights to play under the Sherman Antitrust Act. Right. And because you can't,
prevent from making a living. Yep.
And that's when I won the case. But I had, because the NBA had told, all of the owners had told their players, the Oscar Robertson and the Wilkes and Jerry West and all of them, I tell you one thing, if this guy wins this case, you guys are going to be out on the back end, because you're going to get all these young players coming into the league, and they don't know shit, they don't know nothing. So you're going to be pushed out. And so they didn't support me, at the union. And then lo and behold, Kareem, I walked out on the floor and he gave me a big hug. He said, let's play ball, man. And then everybody came up and we got in there and we played the rest of the season. I got in 30 games that year.
33 games that season.
And boy, that was a burden off my back. But again, everybody looked at me differently because I sued the league. That was, you don't do that.
No.
And every university, even though I went to the Olympic as a university player, and I was a college All-American. Right. In fact, the outstanding college player of the year.
Player of the year, led in scoring, rebounding. Yep.
But all of that stuff was erased, and I was just this demonic person that played basketball.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing.
With that challenge, I got to ask you to recall. I thought this was very poignant during that time of the challenge, the wear and tear on you, going back and forth with court appearances, and what that did to really just tear you apart from the inside. Your mother was more than supportive of your effort to make the challenge. She really encouraged you to fight.
Well, because we come from the civil rights movement of Mississippi, where we could not vote. We couldn't do certain things, but we also cheered on. And when John Lewis and the bus boycott was going through Mississippi, and they came down Highway 49W, so the next town would pass on the word. So we as my brothers and sisters, we'd go out on Highway 49W and watch the bus. Like, wow, man, they're just a little older than we are. And they were going, and they didn't know we didn't know about bus bombings and all that stuff. We were just excited that eventually we would be able to vote, and things were going on. And it was like, and we looked on the bus, hey, it's not just black folks, it's white folks too. What's going on?
Support.
You mean white and black can coexist?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I thought that must have been a really strong emotional moment that your mother encouraged you. She said, well, if you're not going to fight, what did she say? Might as well come back to Mississippi if you're not going to fight it out, son.
Mississippi. You stand up for something or you fall for anything. If you're not going to fight, you can come on back here and pick cotton for me.
That's right.
No, I won't. I will fight.
Fight, and in this case, all the way to the Supreme Court. It was a 7-2 ruling by the Supreme Court after going through all the lower courts. Got to mention one other thing about the Supreme Court. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the most brilliant men of the 20th century, and in all judicial history, you met Thurgood Marshall. I think you actually had a chance to have dinner with Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah. I mean, after the case, we were won and everything. Will Robinson came. We were playing the Baltimore Bullets. And Will decided to come in because I guess they knew each other through the judicial people in Detroit, because we had a very strong judicial side of black judges and everything coming up in Detroit. So I go to dinner with Thurgood Marshall, and he's explaining to me about the case and everything, and it's how wonderful it was. Young man, you did such a great, and you acquitted yourself perfectly. You just were just a model. And I was like, well, okay, but I'm looking at this menu here. They got a couple of filet mignons on it. I think I'm gonna knock those down.
Oh yeah, make that two.
And Will, like, sitting up, Will Robinson over there, like, I thought I had brought him up so much better than this. He's with Justice Marshall, and he's worried about this steak. But you're young guys, man.
Sure.
So that's my big Thurgood Marshall story. It's like I'm looking at the menu. Yeah, that was nice about the case.
Yeah,
and all of that, but
I'm a little hungry.
man, this filet mignon looked really good. Don't have no bones on it.
That's right. Just all the meat. Thank you very much. And just to clarify, at the time the NBA, it was your graduating class. There was a 4-year requirement before eligibility to the pros. And to think about, Spencer, the implications, the ramifications, the far-reaching effect that we feel to today. I mean, we could rattle off the names of almost every major player in the NBA fits into the category that you created as a pioneer now, whether they came out of high school like LeBron or whether they came out of college
like Jordan,
Anthony, or
like Magic.
You just
like
go right
Bird.
down the list with the entire league.
Yeah, the
Amazing.
whole league. And also, at that time, we had only 14 teams.
Yep.
And so when the influx of all of the players coming in, McAdoo and so on, then we were able to expand Buffalo. So we started expanding the brand. So we expanded as far as teams are concerned. Mm-hmm. And then with players coming in, we pushed the older guys into a better, they taught us how to play and kept us in play. So it was like a good marriage, and the league started growing, the revenue started growing. The franchises then was like 250, 300 million. Now they are like 3 billion. And that's on the back of what I did. And also the player revenue that has been created is around $24 billion. Just to players, and players revenue.
Just that alone.
And I'll give you an example. Say a guy like LeBron James, who's making maybe like 45, 50 million a year. I mean, he got 4 years. 4 years of pay, and then he get 4 years on his legs. So he's making, like, say, we just round a number up to 50. So it's like $200 million he made. 4 years on his playing career, 4 years on his stats, 4 years on everything in his life, his body. Because your body is, your wear and tear. I don't care where you play, you're gonna lose some years if you do. That's why you have Kobe and LeBron and those guys playing 20 years and don't look like, which was like a big thing back in the old days. You played, what? You played 15 years? Oh my God, what a old playing long, because you spent 4 years in college.
In college, sure. You went 21, 22 when you came out.
Right. So, so it was a different ballgame.
Yeah, cool.
That's my effect of it. And so that's why the title of the book is called The Spencer Haywood Rule, because thus the fact that the league never named it after me. They always call it hardship.
Hardship.
You usually have to show a hardship until Alvin Adams for the Phoenix Suns. His father was an oil man, and he said, I want to go play. and he said, I ain't showing no hardship. So then they're like, well, okay, come on in. You can't stop you. So we won't call it hardship no more. We'll call it early entry.
That's right. I was trying to think of the term. That's right. Early
entry.
Yeah,
we call it early entry. And then everybody like, I don't like that name either. I don't like early entry. We're going to call it one and done. That's John Calipari.
That was Calipari.
We call it one and done. You'll come to Kentucky, you get one and done, and you're gone. And so now the Players Association and Adam Silver, Kathy Barrett, all of those wonderful people at the NBA, and Michelle Roberts at the Players Association, Chris Paul, our leader over there, they all are looking at after this negotiation, all this stuff, to just change the name to what it is, the Spencer Haywood rule. It's simple. And players will know who I am, because most players have no idea what I did, what I stood for. And so it's an eye-opening experience for them to read this book and be on the talk shows and stuff. And everybody is talking about, well, you know, I didn't know I was under that rule. Richard Jefferson and all the guys, like, wait a minute, that's my rule.
Absolutely. You should get the same as Tommy John with the surgery. It just be the Spencer Haywood rule.
And also you have the Oscar Robertson rule, where 14 teams sued the NBA for free agency and also for a union.
Oh, that's
and
right.
You have the Larry Bird rule. You have the Larry Bird rule, which is my rule. Give it to Larry Bird.
That's right.
And Larry said, "I ain't my rule. It's your rule. I don't want that."
So you can take it. Yep.
I got other things going on. You can have your rule back.
Exactly. And the fact that Shulman was bold enough as the owner, and that translated into just a brilliant run of success for you in Seattle. You became the captain of the team, 4-time All-Star, and huge impact with 30. Once again, your first year, 30 points from your first full season in the NBA, and had the 5 years there in Seattle were just absolutely brilliant. You averaged almost 25 a game, 12 rebounds a game, and you had the exposure to Lenny Wilkins, was your first coach. And the Seattle Supersonics, your first playoff run in 1975, the coach and general manager was none other than you got to tell us about the experience of playing for Bill Russell.
But let me back up a second on Sam Shulman, because Sam Shulman, he said to me when I left Denver, because these guys was like cowboys, and, the ownership up there.
Right.
He said to me, "I'm going to teach you about Brooklyn in the city. And I'm going to teach you about Jewish loyalty," as his word. I like the way he rolled it off. Jewish loyalty. I'm going to teach you that, son. And so I'm like, well, what are you going to teach me here? He said, "I'm going to bankroll the whole case."
Really?
And
wow.
He bankrolled the case at that time. When we got our final bill, it was $1.7 million, I think. Then we got sued for tampering with the NBA. We got another 1.2. But a lot of that were peeled off. But the legal bills were there. He put it, the whole case, the whole bill, all the way through, because he said, "You have not been treated fairly in America. I'm going to show you what this is all about." So to this day, I always go to Israel, because Sam wanted me to go to Israel. And I'm like, well, I got to go to Israel, And
back to the Holy
Land. You got to go because I save your kush. So I save your kush and your tush. So get over there and thank the people. Have a camp and have a clinic. Do something. So I got a chance to meet all of the dignitaries. I've been at the Knesset. I've spoke. And I've always go every 2 or 3 years. I go over with some of my guys from the NBA, and we do our basketball camps and clinics over there and enjoy ourselves. So he has an indelible imprint on my life. So I'm like, Sam, you still got me.
Yeah, it absolutely still has a hold on you, and well, he should for the service, loyalty.
He brought in my hero and my man, Bill Russell. He brought him in.
Yep.
He brought him in as the coach and general manager for the Seattle Supersonics. I thought, man, we're going to be something powerful. It's going to be something really, really powerful here. And Russ got there. He wanted us to be like the Celtics, because he had coached the Celtics. They had won the championship, and he was a player coach. So he didn't know at the time how you had to walk through simple things with players, because they were coming out early, leaving college early. So we didn't have the 4 years of grooming. So you had to coach a lot more. You had to teach the basics, pick and roll, do these things the right way. And so he didn't spend as much time as he should have, but he was so into it. He made us work, and we did it. But then we had players on that team was not really buying into his system. And I, I'm walking around like Bill Russell's like my father. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is my man. I saw him years ago when I was at Persian High School, and we went down to the game at
Cobo Hall.
Cobo Hall.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, well, let's go stand outside. Let's see where they're going to go stay. So we knew they was going to the Pontchartrain, but you got to look like people don't know. The Pontchartrain Hotel right across the street.
Right there, right
so
across
I'm walking behind Bill Russell. He had on this cape and this thing, and he's like his beard pierced and stuff. And I'm like, damn, this is the pros. So I walked over behind Bill Russell. From that point in time, I was like, always, Bill Russell is my man, because he played defense, he rebounded, blocked shots. That was my brand. And so to have him there, and we just did not take advantage of him. We did not take advantage of him at all. And then we had John Brisker, who was a kind of a rebel, from the ABA. He was like in confrontation with Ross every practice, everything. So, and then I was in the middle because John is from Detroit. I helped bring John to Seattle. Jim McDaniels was another guy who wasn't panning out because Bill Russell hit him pretty hard. You got to do this. You can't be like that. You got to block this, do this. So he was timid. So, and there I was the captain, and I'm trying to like, guys, and they're like, no, that's your daddy. So Bill Russell is your daddy. You following him around? Because I'm like, they got 11 championships. We won one.
Yeah, exactly. How do you not follow him?
You got to rub shoulders with a champ.
Yeah.
So that was like friction. And then, when a chance came about, certain players said, you got to get him out of here. We're going to be all right without him. And then the next person that got out was Bill Russell. And I told him that too. When he was like letting me go to New York, I was like, okay.
You may be next. Yeah. As it
sure enough, he was next.
Yeah. You were the first superstar professional athlete in Seattle, with the only game in town, the Supersonics. It was a huge focus in the old Key Arena. So even though you spent a lot of time in court and off the court, it was on the basketball court, and eventually, as we've had the background, your number is 24, retired in Seattle. Before you did move on, there was another rather eventful moment in your life. There was a fledgling shoe company up in Beaverton, Oregon, and they had a company called Blue Ribbon Sports at the time, mainly known for running shoes. The University of Oregon is synonymous with running, with Bill Dellinger and Steve Prefontaine. They're great.
Yeah, all of those guys,
all those guys. And they contacted you, and there was a summit meeting, I believe, at Seattle University, where they had a proposal for Mr. Spencer Haywood about maybe being the spokesman for their product.
The spokesman, I was the spokesperson for the brand, and also this brand was coming out of, like you said, out of Beaverton, Oregon, which is outside of Portland.
Right.
And you only had two things. You had Portland Trailblazers, Seattle Supersonics in the Northwest. And so they were like, we're going to need you to be the best person we can be for this shoe, because you're young, you got all of this new energy, you got everything. You're the driving force behind the shoe. So we're going to like give you a little taste of the company, some stock. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I don't know if the shoe's going to make it, because I'm getting echoes at that time. Wasn't Al Ross, but another agent was working on the contract, because Al had other players by then. He was busy. So, and I'm like, what's going to happen? Is it going to drive my stock? I mean, I got to drive up my, my salary. I got to pay more taxes and everything else. And my accountant was like, yeah, if you take the money. And so I said, I'll take the stock. So I gave him a power of attorney. The attorney gave him the power of attorney to finish up negotiating, do whatever. He just could not figure out how to get that 10% that he was going to get out of that. So he said, on the road, I'm playing, I think it was in Philadelphia. Okay. I'm playing, and he says, well, you know what I think I'm going to do for you? I'm going to like dissolve your stock, and we're going to take it out in cash.
Oh boy. So
I'm like, I'm on the road, man. Can we wait until I get, no, I got the deal. I got it covered. So he dissolved my stock, took the cash, My accountant was like crazy. Oh, you done messed up big time because your income bracket is way up. You're going to pay this much taxes. That's the worst deal ever. I'm like, yeah, but he's saying the shoe company will never make it. And lo and behold, that is Nike.
Yep. They made it.
They did. And so every time I spend a lot of time getting around with Phil Knight and all of the Nike team, and they always, we having big dinners and stuff, and they always, Spencer Haywood, stand up. Our first billionaire that is not a billionaire.
Oh, they just torture you. That's terrible.
That's terrible. And then they bring me out to games. I get all my shoes and all my stuff, but it's like a running joke.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I get this call. I'm sitting in New York.
Gosh.
I'm like, they have the negotiation and the collective bargaining agreement between the ownership and the team. I get this call. It's Michael Jordan. Hey, man, I'm having dinner. Come on down. We're going to have a nice time here in New York. We're going to hang out. I want to thank you for what you did and everything for me. So come on down to dinner. So we got all these owners and people. We're sitting at the table. Michael turns to me. This would have been the first one. He threw the deal away, the Nike deal away. And all night long, he just stuck it in me. I'm like, Mike, come on. That was fun in games, Yeah.
Oh, sure.
We ball players, Just because we make a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
So, but he was just, I was like, Mike, you can't just jab me with that fork, man. We had a good time, but that was one of my days of bad experience.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Once again,
so the stock is about $1 billion now.
Yeah, exactly. Well into the billions, and I guess at the time, 100,000 was the equivalent. It wasn't too bad. It was the equivalent, maybe 2 to 3 million when you took the 100,000. But nevertheless, and I met Phil Knight about 10 years ago, and if I'd known, I would have put in a good word for you anyway. But try to get that stock back anyway.
Try to get my stock. No, he just gave away $950 million worth of stock.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's right. Just
recently. He donated.
Wow.
So I'm going to call him when I get off this call. You just reminded me.
That's right.
I'm going to call him and hey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Phil,
remember old Spence?
That's right. Your first guy. That's right. The number one. Your first spokesman. We're the old Bruin shoe. That was the first shoe.
Bruin shoe. Yeah. And every time you would play in the shoe, you would go down the floor and Wilt Chamberlain, he found it out first. He said, that shoe ain't gonna last.
They laughed at you, didn't they, with that shoe at the All-Star game?
And at the All-Star game, I couldn't wear the shoe.
Yeah.
Because it would pop off, you could pop it off. And Lenny didn't like me wearing that shoe either. Because you could step on the hill and it pop off and you're down there trying to put it back on. So Wilt said, hey guys, we can't have the Rook come in here with this funny looking shoe on. We want him in a Converse or an Adidas. So I go ahead and say, okay, man, I wear the shoe. I wore the Adidas and I finished up the game. Him and Jerry West and Oscar and Wilt was sitting over there counting up the money like, boy, we're going to make a lot of money off these young guys coming into the league because they got paid for me to wear the shoe.
Right. Exactly.
Welcome to the NBA, son.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you consider what you did for players coming to the league to play and what that did economically, and then if you consider you're right at the on the forefront, on the cutting edge at the very beginning of shoe spokesman, you can add that in on the economics. And you mentioned big departure from Seattle to the Big Apple in 1975.
Big Apple, man, that was like drama. That was so. And because again, I'm this country boy. I land in New York, man. It's like the tempo was different. It was like.
Yeah,
the jazz was different because I'm a jazz man. I'm like, oh man, I can go down to the Village Gate, Village Vanguard. So it was like really an eye-opening experience, but I had no relationship. I had nobody there with me. And being in New York like that, and you just trying to play basketball and do that. And then one night I was on a blind date with Iman's roommate.
Oh, really? It started with the roommate. I was going to say, I've been trying to meet supermodels my whole life, Spencer. How did you meet a supermodel? You got to tell us. It was the roommate.
Well, she's sitting there with us, and we're talking and stuff, and then we go back to my place upstairs because at that time I lived in this building on 64th and Broadway where Nina Simone, Reverend Ike, Lionel Hampton.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was all of us in this big building.
Wow.
So we up in the apartment, and I had books all around and stuff. And she's like, "You got a Quran?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have one." And so she started reading it and reading it in Arabic. I was like, "Hey, what are you doing, girl?" And we had been looking at each other all along, and just like, because she had just came in from Africa.
Yes, that's right.
And it's from Somalia. So it was like
that's right.
two country folks finding each other. And that's what happened. We found each other and just embedded ourselves in that love because of the fact that we didn't know everything. We was in the high life of everything. We were like the top shelf of everything. Everybody, and before we got married, while we was dating, everybody wanted to have this fabulous couple at their events, the
A-list.
Yeah, the A-list, the Met and everything. So we were there, and then we got married. It was even more profound. And we started raising our daughter, and then her family was in exile from Somalia because of the different politics in Somalia. And so I brought her sisters, two sisters and a brother over, and they lived with us in New York City. I didn't know what the hell they was talking about. They were probably calling me all kinds of dirty names.
That's right. Best you didn't know.
Best I didn't know. And so we had a wonderful time. We had this love affair because we were just two people who were just clinging to each other. And it was really beautiful. It was a beautiful affair. And then, of course, the high life of the fashion world and everything, Studio 54.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody started doing a few lines. Yeah, hey, you want a line? You want a line? And that was cocaine.
Yep.
And eventually I broke down and had a line. Then I get traded to New Orleans, where I'm coached by Elton Baylor, and I'm playing with Gail Goodrich, Pete Maravich, and all that. We got it all together, and we were like burning. We were like ready to roll. And then they decided, excuse me, this is not going to be good here in New Orleans. We're going to move the team to Utah.
Utah, right. Not exactly the Twin Cities, Spencer. New Orleans,
right. Well, I could commute a little bit from New Orleans to New York with my wife's shows and what she was doing. And so I was like, well, I'm going to sit out. I'm not going to sign the contract. So I ended up signing the contract with the Lakers because Kareem and Jack McKinney, all of them recruited me and said, we got this solid team. We got this young guy, Norm Nixon. We got Michael Cooper. We got Jamal Wilkes. We need a big forward. We got Spencer Haywood. And we got this wild guy coming in from Michigan State. I don't know nothing about this guy. I just saw him in the finals against him and Larry Bird. I was like, he's pretty wild, So we get to training camp, and there's Magic, and he's just passing and just, oh, man, everything. We were like, what? Everything was like so happy and joyful. I was like, this is great basketball. I love this. And you'll be playing with them, like running down the floor, and you're like, oh, what the? The ball is right on your head. You like grab it. Oh, let me make this layup. It's pretty easy. Oh, and then we will swing that triple post where we clear off the post and drop it down to Kareem. Sky hook coming out of the sky. Boom, never miss. And here I am, man, because I had a taste in New York. So I'm like, all right. And then I'm like,
Hollywood.
All of these people in Hollywood was like, Iman, Spencer, Iman, Lakers. So we get invited to all these parties and stuff. So I go in the back room. This guy is back there cooking some shit. I'm like, what's going on? This little bottle, he's cooking it. And he's like, cocaine, man. I'll tell you what it is. We're taking out all of the impurities, and then you put it on this pipe and you smoke it. I was like, it's organic too, right? So I put it on there and I took a hit, and I stayed there most of the night. My wife had to go to work the next day because she had a shoot downtown, and I had practice. And I guess I got popped the first night because I kept coming back and kept going back and back and back. And I watched my game go from 25-12 down to 7-5. By the end of the season, it was like at 7-3. and I had lost 20 pounds, basically 15 pounds. I was a shell of myself, and I couldn't figure out what had happened to me because I was in the denial factor. And it was like, it's not me. Let's go to the film room. And because the coaches were getting on me, Magic and Kareem, come on, Wood, man. You know, come on, dude. I'm like, well, I got something that's happening to me. I can't control this, man. But let's go to the film room. I think I'm doing pretty good. So, and they were like, you know, you dropped the pass here, you dropped the pass there. And I was like, looking at the film, and I was like, you know, the denial factor jumped in and was like, wait a minute, hold back that film up a little bit. You see that pass that Magic dropped on me right here? It's in my hand, but he's got spin on it. He's got like a lot of, you know.
Yeah, still in
It
denial.
wasn't me, it was Magic.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, shoot, it was him. He put too much spin on the ball. And then the last one pass, it wasn't chest high, it was like a little bit low the chest, you know what I mean? And Kareem, let me tell you about yourself, big fella. You shooting 70% of these hooks you're shooting. I normally get my rebound on the other side. Now you're shooting like almost 80. And they looking at me like, woo-wee. This guy is. So I had a terrible year, to say the least. And we finished the championship. And Jerry West, Bill Sharman, and Dr. Buss, we got together and they were like, we don't have treatment for you or nothing. I know you want to get help and so on, but the best thing for you right now is maybe we send you to Italy. And I was like, to Italy? You gonna put me on the Isle of Pappas? What's going on? You can't exile me. And so, and he said, well, look, if you want that contract you just signed with the Lakers, you got to honor it. And we don't want you going to Dallas because you're going to get right in Dallas and come back and hurt us.
Yeah,
the Lakers.
Same conference.
So I took the ridge, and my wife was like, you know, you're going to love it in Italy. I'm not going to love it in Venice. You crazy? And so she says, well, I'm going to reroute all of my work to Milan, and from Milan on into Paris. I'm going to reroute my work, and we're going to have a good time. So just go take a year and regroup. So I did. And I came out of it with so much anger and so much disappointment because how could the NBA, the Lakers, and people let me down? And I let myself down, but I was blaming them. And so the Italians, you know, the first big practice, we practice and stuff. And then after practice, everybody get together. We go to the restaurant, everybody eating together, and we drinking and talking and stuff like that, and they laughing, and it's like a whole festive time. And so the hate that I was feeling and disappointment in myself and all that stuff started boiling out. And I started studying the Bible again really close, and because I had a lot of Christians there with the team and everything, so we started to get a feel of everything. And then I started studying the history of Venice in terms of Othello, the Moors of Venice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of time on hand.
Right.
And so I just got myself into a good space and a good place in Italy. And I played very strong basketball. And my wife was able to come over and spend a lot of time with me because her shows were in Milan, and in Paris and all throughout Italy. So, you know, it was pretty cool. But then it was time to come back home because I did have my young daughter and my family, the Somalians, at the house. So I came back to Washington, back to the seat of government where I started. Because I started, you know, going to the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with the bullets, you know, I'm at the seat of government again. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I had a good run there with the Bullets. We won. We got all the way into the quarterfinals against Boston in the Eastern Conference. Right. And Boston knocked us off in 6. And then the following year, as we were getting ready to get going and get moving really strong, my wife was in a very bad accident. Iman was in this cab accident that had destroyed her face and had to reconstruct her face. And I had my young daughter, which was like 2 or 3 or something. And then I had Nadia, her sister. She didn't speak the language. And I had Idil, her other sister. She wasn't speaking the language that strong. And I had Elias, I mean, in and out of the house in New York. And so I had to come home. I didn't know how to approach any team to say, hey, I need a break now. I need to go home to take care of some business. So I just quit and thought I could go back. And so I went home to take care of my family. And also I had dabbed a little bit more, and I just, all the stuff came back, and I wasn't following my program as strong as I should. And then I decided I got to get some treatment. So I went away to San Francisco and did serious treatment, because I thought the accident was because I was away in Washington. I was commuting home on Eastern Airlines every week and stuff, but it was not enough. So I started to get myself together. I did 60 days in treatment, and then I came back, and then they said, no, you need another 60 days. So I went and dropped another 60 days, and then I went driving all across the country, making 12-step meetings, because they didn't have Narcotics Anonymous at that time. In the early days. It was like, so my support system was Alcohol Anonymous. So I went all over the country talking. I ended up on the bank of the Silver City, Mississippi, on the river, where I used to pull and pick up garbage to make toys and all of that stuff. And I sat there and I was like, why would I go that journey into this madness from here? How could this be possible? So I got a lot of gratitude. I got a lot of humility, because I had some arrogance. So, you know, arrogance can be a drug too. And so I started to get my life together. And then after a while, we were just separate, because I couldn't live in New York and stay clean. And so I had to make a choice, you know, like Iman's work was there, and I didn't have no more work. I was just, you know, I was just out of work and finished up, and I played, and I started developing real estate in Detroit. And she was like, well, you know, we're going to get a divorce. And so we got a divorce. And then our daughter was in the mix of all of that. And then I brought my daughter over to live with me, because she was like 11 years old, because Iman was just really working. We always had that relationship where, you know, whoever was working, whoever was doing the right thing, we'll never be publicly with nothing. We will always be the support of the family. And so I took my daughter, and that's when, you know, like having your young daughter, she's coming on her menses and stuff, and I'm like all confused. And I was dating this young lady named Linda, and lo and behold, we started hanging out, and then we got married, and now we're going into our 30th year. We have 3 more daughters. And we have 2 doctors out of that group.
2 doctors, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Zuleika is doing real well. She still works with her mother, Imani, and she also does a lot of big work at a corporate company that maybe I should say it, Coke Industry. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's all good. And raising her daughter and her husband, they live in Wichita, Kansas, but they shoot back to New York a lot. And I have my youngest daughter that was at Bleacher Report and also at Slam magazine. So she's been working.
She's a writer. Yeah,
she's a writer, but she's also a party person who present all of the big parties, the big events for those companies.
Oh, wow. And
she's a graduate from UNLV as well. And then my oldest daughter, my next to oldest, number 2, is she's a professor at Lincoln University there in Philadelphia. And then Shakira, number 3, she's a psychologist in New York City. She got her clients and a whole base of people. And then I said my youngest, Isis. So that's my girls. I have no boys. I got 2 grandsons
girls
now.
Oh, you got 2? Well, okay, the next generation to follow.
Next generation. One of them got the name too, Spencer Haywood.
Oh, he'll have a lot to live up to, but he'll have a good mentor.
Yeah. But my wonderful little grandbaby, my daughter, she keeps saying, I'm going to be the best basketball player of all of them. I said, I know you will.
Do they have the hands? Because
they got the hands.
They got all of knuckle on each hand. Did that pass on down? The hands are unbelievable.
They got hands. They got coordination, like little babies. They got like, I'm like, whoa, the gene.
You were noted for your hands of like,
Yeah.
just hold them up for a minute, like the biggest in the NBA history, extra knuckle on each hand. Unbelievable.
And you know, when I was born,
Yeah.
my hands came out, my mom and everybody was around. They came over to see the baby. They said, now I tell you, Eunice, that baby is going to be the best cotton picker this county had ever seen. Because look at the size of his hands. And that was my driving force behind becoming the best cotton picker.
Right, exactly. Peter Vesey of the Peter Vesey of the New York Times said he can palm. His line about you was he can palm Sunday. How about that?
Yes, Palm Sunday.
Palm Sunday with those hands. The whole day Sunday you can palm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very, very well quoted. I gotta ask you one other basketball question. It really baffles me when I think back. The Knick team in the 70s that you were a part of, Willis Reed, Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, Bill Bradley, Phil Jackson, only one playoff trip during that time. Was it an identity thing? Or
No. What happened when they brought me into town,
yeah,
Willis Reed retired, Jerry Lucas retired,
okay, yeah,
Dave DeBusschere retired. And so they said, this one guy is going to fill that slot for three Hall of Famers.
Oh.
And then you had Bill Bradley working on his memoirs, because we were roomies for a while.
Oh, really?
He was working on his memoirs, and, you know, in his last days. And Phil was like my roommate for a while too. And then he would be like spending all of his time at Red, going over the books and everything, because he wanted to be a coach. And then you had Walt Frazier with this big old ass book on his arm. So thesaurus. He's looking for words, you know.
Yep.
And then Earl had operations on both feet, you know. So it was a different kind of team. And then we started bringing in, you know, like pieces like with McAdoo, and then we were playing a same position. And then we had Lonnie Shelton, so we had three of us. If we had to just focus as players and really not been caught up in anything, and Willis was our coach, we had a good squad. We had a new
talent. Yeah.
But again, we were like, you know,
just didn't fit.
Hot shot dudes that didn't want to listen to the old heads, you know, like, hey man, you know. And then I was trying to show the young guys that, you know, and they were always pointing, you listen to Bill Russell up there and look what happened. Look what happened to you. You got out. It threw you out. So we were like giving Willis a lot of trouble. And it was not good. We had Ray Williams. We had Michael Ray Richardson. We had Glenn Gondrzak. We had Toby from Notre Dame. I can't remember his last name, but we had him, Dickie Burden. We had a bunch of players that could play.
Yeah, some real good players.
But we were just so scatterbrained.
Yeah.
And I didn't do a good job as co-captain in that situation. I really didn't. Yeah. And we were bothering Willis Reed about eating pork and stuff, you know, like stupid stuff. And every time he get ready to eat, and we're like all over him, like, what you got in that plate there, Willis? Got some pork in there?
Not good.
And he was like, get away, I'm not going to play you tomorrow. So, like, you know, like, so we kind of like screwed up that whole situation.
Yeah, well, I had to.
And to this day, you know, I look at the Knicks and I'm like, wow, all of this stuff. And I think that all former Knicks should get together and make this franchise workable again. I mean, just come and visit the games. And I do. I come down because my daughters live there now. I go to games, cheer them on. Let's make the Knicks what's happening again, because them guys over in Brooklyn, used to be Jersey. Who goes over to Jersey other than a lawyer? Nah, bad joke. So now you got the Brooklyn there, right there in the hood, and we just can't seem to get anybody.
Yeah.
So I think Thibodeau is going to do some pretty good stuff there. I think really sure.
Hopefully turn it around.
He's a fundamentalist. So, and you got to build it from defense. You can't build it from offense.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be able to attract some players there. Yeah. For sure.
Absolutely.
Let Spike Lee have his seat back.
That's right. He could be back courtside again. Spike could have worn this, the Detroit Stars of the Negro Leagues. That might be in his closet, too.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Spencer, get to
Well, we had another player that played in the Negro League. Did he play in the Negro League earlier? Bob Gibson?
Yeah, Bob Gibson did, as a matter of fact, yeah, before he quit Major League.
And he also played professional basketball at that time, too, with the Trotters.
He came out of Creighton, and he played for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Just a little history.
That's all right. There you go. That's your 200-point toss-up question there on Jeopardy. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. And I just bringing all of this full circle, I think the appropriate moment in time, and as I say, you are a survivor, and you mentioned about your problems with substance abuse.
30 years.
Rehab, 30 years.
Yeah. But one day.
Done,
one day.
One day at a time.
Yeah.
But to bring it full circle, your Hall of Fame induction, you had Bill Walton there, who you're very close with.
Yeah. All the way back from Portland, Seattle, you know.
Yep. Yeah. He said Deadhead, you're Jazz Head, he's Deadhead, as you said.
Exactly.
You had Lenny Wilkins, your first NBA coach. You were inducted with now, unfortunately, he's passed, JoJo White from the '68 Olympics.
But also Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley, that's right. And just Charles
that in for me, and he was one of my advocates.
Guardian angel, right? You called him just to tell
angel.
us. Yep, your guardian angel.
My guardian angel, because he was behind the scenes working on it. Because I had went up two times before, and it was so painful. And then he went on public and on TNT and all of the shows started talking about it. And then the NBA said, look, it's about time. He's been in exile long enough.
That's right. He suffered long enough. Yep.
Yeah. And Barkley and all the guys were like, well, you didn't stay as long as Nelson Mandela. He had 27 years. Come on, guys. You don't need to say that.
That's right. That was an unnecessary shot. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Come on.
Yep.
It was beautiful. Bill Walton, you know, he was like, boy, in Seattle and Portland, we should share a few things on the side.
Oh, yeah.
There was nothing powdery, but
right.
The stick.
Something else. Yeah, exactly.
Something that's legal nowadays.
That's legal now, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Everything's legal right now. based on the referendum this week. It's all amazing.
Portland, Seattle, Nevada, all of three.
It really gave you, as you mentioned, your acceptance by the Hall of Famers, the inductees that have been inducted.
Yeah.
And also, it's come around now, Spencer, with Charles Barkley's efforts, the awareness of generations that have followed and an acceptance of the players today for an appreciation for you and who you were as a pioneer to what you attained for them and what they have reaped the benefits of. So it's going to be very gratifying for you at this point.
Very gratifying. And even more gratifying is, well, it's basically the same, is that LeBron keep talking about, man, you had some game.
That's right. Absolutely.
I was like, yeah, I had some stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that was the last thing you said at the Hall of Fame. That was
the last thing I said. I said, don't you all forget. Yep. I had game. I just didn't go to the Supreme Court. I had some serious game.
Serious game. Absolutely. Yeah. Indeed, you did. And I know that one of the best thank yous you ever had was from LeBron's mom, Gloria.
Yeah.
Personally, thank you. I'm sure that meant a lot.
Now all of the mothers are starting to thank you. Thank me, and they learn about the story. Yep. And JaVale McGee's mother, I mean, she's just been such an advocate for me, telling the mothers what's going on. Pamela McGee.
Yep.
So she tells all the mothers now, y'all, we wouldn't have this big house we have unless this guy here, if he hadn't did what he did. So, because the wealth that was developed was not just for the players. It was for the players, the communities, the families, so everybody got a chance to enjoy in this journey. So it's just an awesome time in my life, man. It's just, boy.
Indeed. I'm sure so grateful. As Charles Barkley said, the Hall of Fame will never be complete without Spencer Haywood. And the power forward, big, graceful, soft touch, the huge hands.
The huge hands.
And as they said.
And a rebounder.
And a rebounder. He had the low post moves. He had the turnaround jumper. He had the one-hand swoop like Hawkins and Dr. J. And I think the best compliment is you could go by the big men and you could go over the small men.
Oh,
and make
man.
it all work.
And you know who also helped in that last episode of trying to get me into the hall? David Stern.
And David Stern stepping up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. To give him all the way to the top.
Yeah.
Truly a survivor, truly a pioneer, and a guy that, well, I've really enjoyed spending time with today, Spencer, here on the Games People Play. You played very well with us. The name of the book, check it out, Spencer Haywood Rule. And it's about battles, basketball, and the making of this man, an American iconoclast by Mark Spears and Gary Washburn. It's available Triumph Books. You can go to Amazon, or I always say wherever, since I've been an author, wherever better books are sold. I always like to say that. And you can check out the whole remarkable story. Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you.
And not to give you any flashbacks, I'll leave the final word to Howard Cosell. George Foreman and the destruction of Iona Shapulis of the Soviet Union for that gold medal in 1968 in Mexico City. Spencer, thank you so much for joining us. Gold medalist, 1968 Olympics. God bless you.
God bless you. You got it.
Okay. Play well, Spencer. You played well with us today.
All right. Thank you so much.
Spencer Haywood, our guest here on the Games People Play with Bernie Corbett. Thank you to the boys in Seattle, for Todd and Kiwan. Thank you to my executive producer, Andy Bernstein, for making it all possible, and for everybody that makes the Games People possible, and especially for our guest today, Spencer Haywood. It was great spending time with him. This is Bernie Corbett saying, play well, everyone.